Hello crafty friends, my name's Alicia, but you can call me Crafty Al, and it is time for a SheetLoad rewind. I hope you'll stick around to see what edition we're revisiting, see the cards I'm going to make, and this is actually an edition that is now in the vault, so all subscribers will have access to this printable for a limited time. Welcome, or perhaps welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that you're here today. Each month I stop by with a little SheetLoad rewind where I revisit a past edition of SheetLoad of cards. Well, starting last month, now some of my creative team members are also joining me, so you're going to get even more inspiration using the printable that we're revisiting. Once you're done with my video, I know that you're going to want to see what they've created. So there is a playlist linked at the top of the description box below and as an end card at the end of this video, so you can go check out their videos, see what they created, and they always appreciate you leaving some love. Let's go ahead and find out which printable we're using this month. All of the videos that you'll watch in this month's hop will be showcasing the March 2022 SheetLoad of cards. This edition uses 6x6 pattern paper, and the layout was inspired by Anya Lenchenko. Now, if you don't yet have this edition and you would like to download it but you're not yet a channel member, good news. This file will be coming out of the vault for a limited time. When I share with you later in the video how to download this PDF, I will tell you more about that. Now, if you're a channel member, no worries, you always have access to this PDF. To find out more about the perks of channel membership, you can click on the join button below this video or the link in the description box below. This originally called for 6 6x6 pattern papers to help you yield 6 A2 cards. For my set today, instead of using 6 pieces of pattern paper, I am going to only use 3 and yield 3 cards. I will be switching it up just a little bit as well, so make sure to keep watching. Now, if you want to see the original debut and process videos where I go into the cutting and assembly process in a lot more detail, you can check out the description box for those links. As I get into the process, I will tell you about the products and tools that I'll be using, but as always, if I ever leave you with any questions, feel free to leave those in that comment section below, and I'll get back to you just as soon as I can. Let's get crafty! For today's cards, I chose 3 pieces from the Simple Stories Vintage Bliss paper pad that I thought went together nicely. And one thing that I'm going to switch up from the original instructions is instead of using a colored cardstock for matting and that middle banner strip, I actually chose a 4th piece from the paper pad, this yellow pattern, that I thought would make a great border between the pattern papers. I am going to show you quickly how I cut one of the pattern papers. Again, if you want a more in-depth tutorial, check out the original process video linked below. Now, if your pattern paper has a specific direction or one that you want it to go, like for me this wood grain paper, I wanted the planks to go horizontal, keep that in mind before you make your first cuts. Off camera, I cut the 2 remaining pattern papers in the same way. Now I'm going to show you how I cut that 4th pattern paper to be the matting on my pieces. Originally this piece was going to be much wider, but since I only have 1 sheet of this, all I'm going to do is make thin strips that I'll place behind the center pattern papers. To do this, I'm going to cut 6 strips that are a 1/2 inch wide, and for now I'm leaving them at the 6 inches tall. I do need 2 of these strips for each card. Then, from the portion that's left over, I'm going to cut pieces that will end up being the little fishtail banners on the front. Because this yellow piece is non-directional, what I'm going to do is cut a piece that is 4 1/4 inches wide. This is slightly wider than what the sheet calls for because I'll be using a paper punch for those fishtail ends. So once it was 4 1/4 wide, I cut 3 strips that were a 1/2 inch. Another thing I'm switching up is I don't need the CS2 for the sentiment and the die cut piece. I'll show you later what I'm going to put in place of that. From my stash, I did grab 3 top fold card bases. Now if you want a book fold or one that opens on the 5.5-inch side, you can definitely do that too. Here's a look at all of my pattern paper pieces cut, and now I'm going to put these into what I call card kits, and that's just when I go ahead of time and put together each of the pieces that will be on the final cards. When you're doing a sheet load that calls for 3 pattern papers, it's a good idea to do this ahead of time just so you don't end up at the end with multiple pieces on the same card using the same pattern. My original plan was to put the 2 yellow border strips right behind the pattern papers, but then I realized that might be a bit tricky and I wanted to put those on some type of base before adding the border. So off camera, I cut 3 pieces of scrap white cardstock to 3 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. Then I'm going to take the 2 pattern papers that go on this strip, adding one to the top and one to the bottom. For this, I made sure the pieces were flush with the top and bottom because if there was a gap between them, which mine does have a slight one, that will be covered up later by that horizontal fishtail banner. Once those 2 pieces were in place, I added a line of liquid glue on the back of the cardstock and got that added to the yellow strip. I did my best to keep the spacing or the amount of border uniform, and then I added the second one. When those were dry, I trimmed off the excess using some scissors, and now it was time to put these pieces onto the card fronts. For this, I'm going to place the 2 blue strips on either side of the card front. I did align these at the top, right on the fold, and the reason I have these on opposite sides is, and the reason that we could use 6x6 paper for this is, that gap in the middle is covered up by the piece that we just created. Now mine does have some excess hanging off the end of the card front, and once that dries completely, I will go ahead and trim that off. Once all of those pieces were in place, I brought in a paper punch and I added fishtail ends to each of those center strips. I did tell you earlier that I cut these to 4.25 inches wide instead of 3 3/4, and that's because the punches take a little bit off each end and it ends up being almost perfect once you do those punches. Once those were all ready, I added them across the card with some ATG, just keeping everything nice and flat so far. The next step is to add the focal points. It originally called for an image and a sentiment, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm doing something different. Off camera, before I got started, I created this Hello SVG cut file that has a word and a shadow. I cut 3. I did the hello from white cardstock and the shadow from vellum. I sized these so they would fit nicely on these cards, but if you download this, if you are a channel member, you can always change it for the card or the size that you want. To put these 2 layers together, I'm going to use liquid glue. This gives me some wiggle time once that's on there to get it nice and centered on the vellum shadow. Now luckily with this font, the word is all in one piece. So just add that glue and try to get it centered as best as possible. While I finish putting the rest of these together, I'm going to tell you how you can download these free cut files if you are a channel member. Later this morning over on the membership tab, which I will link in the description box below, you're going to want to look for a graphic that looks like the one up on screen now. In the description, it will have a link to the SVG and PNG files for your personal use. Now, if you're not yet a channel member and you would like access to this file and many other perks, you can click on the join button below this video to find out more. Thank you so much to those of you who are already members. You help to keep me creating here on YouTube and the last 2 years of SheetLoad of cards free for all subscribers. I hope that you're enjoying the perks of membership. Once all of the sentiments were in place, I did call these cards done, and here are some close-up looks at the finished set. I hope you enjoyed this little rewind to March 2022. If you did, as always, a thumbs up is appreciated. Now let me tell you how you can download the printable if you're not a channel member. As I mentioned before, this edition is in the vault. That means it is more than 2 years old and currently only available to channel members. Well, since this is the edition that we're rewinding back to this month, I'm going to make it available for all subscribers for 30 days. So if you don't yet have this printable and you're not yet a channel member, please make sure you have already clicked on that subscribe button below. It's free, it's quick, it's easy. Then you're going to find the link to the PDF down in the description box right below my P.O. Box address. You can download it to your device and then print it like I have, or you can download it to your device and just use it on screen. That link will remain active until April 25th, 2025. Until my next video, I hope you're all having a crafty day. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch all the way to the end of the video. I hope now you'll consider clicking on one of the videos or playlists I have linked above. And if you are interested in any of the products or tools I used in today's video, I do have some links in the description box below.